And we're getting into our big stories because President John Dramani Mahama has effected some changes in the military hierarchy days after shaking up that of prisons, fire service and immigration service, as well as the Ghana Police Service. Now, what does these leadership changes mean for the security of the state? And are these changes in line with best practices? We'll be getting into the conversation shortly. Joining us, our guest via Zoom, we have Dr. Victor Doke. He's a security analyst. Doc, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Well, I'm here with Benjamin, and we'll be steering the conversations. I want us to start with a concern you raised. I read your article dated, I think, 5th January this year about possible military shakeup, changes in the leadership and the implications of that. Really, what were you trying to say to us? Looks like your predictions came through, but you tell us, what were you trying to warn us about in the first place?
Yeah, thank you very much, and then good morning to you, and then to your cherished viewers. So first of all, I was looking at the aspect of the outgoing president having to, promote the service chiefs, okay, to 4-star and 3-star respectively, and then the implications it will have on the incoming government, whether it should be maintained or not. And then you're looking at the back where, this is a sensitive institution whereby we hope and wish that politics will not creep into it as much as, it has done across board with the other, security services. But then it was something that I thought, and then so let me make a projections out of it with regards to not only the service chiefs, the police department, the intelligence bureaus and all of that, and then the special focus on Boko and all of that. So it was something that I looked at and then saw that with this kind of appointments that will be coming in and which are already coming, it's going to pose somewhat of a problem if the trend should continue like this. Now, as to whether we can have another system which people have, proposed, yes, we can, whereby these service will have, a system in place where they themselves will now come up with modalities and then, couch a very, comprehensive roadmap with regards to hierarchical, appointments. But if we say we want to go that tangent, then it means we have to alter the regulations, the law. And I don't see who's going to lead that, conversation in the first place. And you're talking about politics in itself. The president who comes in and then wants to control everything under his, authority. You're talking about politics and security and vice versa. So whoever becomes the head of state will like to have control over every sector, including the security sector. And that by putting people he thinks can work with. Okay? You're talking about appointments that have been done, in the previous government. The notion or the perception is that these service chiefs have an allegiance to a certain, group of people. Now, you keep them in place, and then what would happen? There could be, or there may be instances where information could be leaked out, and then that means your system, your governance system would be at stake. So you look at all these things, you factor in the aspect of what winner takes all in our politics today, and then you are best assured to come out with some projection that there are certain things that are going to, happen, and obviously it's happening.
One of the, right before Ben comes in, one of the last things former President Akufo-Addo did before leaving office was to promote the current Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Thomas Oppong-Prepa, to the rank of a 4-star general. And some of the things you said in that article was about whether, those in line to succeed these people if they proceed on retirement, whether the rank will be, matching the responsibility. Now that these names have come up, now that these appointments have been made, would you say they align with the structure that you had in mind, whether it's international military norms or at least reflect the, evolving operational needs of that security service?
Right. So with regards to the outgoing CDF who was promoted to 4-star and then the other service chiefs to 3-stars, now you would best assured I saw one article from Colonel Festus Abajo retired, where he explained and argued that with regards to our space, the security space itself doesn't warrant a 4-star or 3-star. Now, my take is that since the new crop of service chiefs have come out, and then with regards to their ranks, I've seen them, checked them, and they are one-star generals.
Mhm.
So then you're best assured that they are acting as at now. So when they are confirmed, there's a likelihood that they will be given what? A two-star rank. Because in the past, we've had what? Two-star generals and two-star ranked officials who are what? At the top realm of affairs. Now, as to whether the President John Mahama will go on that tangent, okay, with regards to what? Another type of promotion, then we are yet to see. But I don't think, in my personal opinion, it is good for our service. Then you are sure that everybody that comes in would want to what? Go in that direction. But do we warrant with regards to these, promotions at that level? That's another question. So for me, I think substantively, if they come in and then it warrants at 2 stars, yes, why not? We go for it. But other than that, we have to look at the modalities well, and then for what purpose? That's what we have to think about.
Ben.
Speaking of the modalities, but even before I get there, just a quick question. The president, of course, must choose people he can work with, but these security changes, are they absolutely necessary?
Well, Ben, you talk about the aspect where, let me just make a practical example. You're working with the young lady there, and you kind of trust her in a certain way, so you would want to have that working relationship with her. It's the same with every institution. Okay, you're talking about a government that is, no more in office in power, and then those who would have been appointed to serve another government, to serve the nation, are perceived to have what? Some allegiance to the outgoing president and the government itself. You are going to what? Jeopardize, or you are going to put your security system in what? In harm's way, or there's going to be a challenge if you decide to keep past appointees in there. It's a matter of trust going forward now. The leaders have to, work with people they think they can trust. And those who have not been what associated with any past government. Now, ideologies come to play, ideas and concepts or whatever have come to play now. This is a new government who has new ideologies with regards to its security space, things that he wants to focus on. So then you are best assured that he would have what? A new crop of leaders to work with. And that is what we are seeing here.
I see. Interesting dynamics from that angle. But when it comes to the one-star generals you speak of, is it mere formality that once they get into some of these positions, they will become two-star generals? Is it a matter of course when it comes to these positions? I'm talking about the military leadership.
So normally what happens is those who are near for these top positions will likely also be near for what? Promotions to 2 star from 1 star. Because you have some 2 stars existing in the system already. And then you bring a 1 star to what? Be a CDS. How do you expect that what rank of respect or leadership with regards to the existing 2 stars? So then you have to what? Make them par. So there wouldn't be any kind of acrimony in the system. And that is the right way to go. So mostly all these 1 stars are near towards promotion to 2 stars.
Right.
And then you will have them being picked. And then shortly after, you give them the 2 stars. Because then it's like you coming in and you have seniors in the system. And how does that feel? You get the dynamics there. But if you don't play the cards well, you are likely to get acrimonies in the service, and you don't want that.
I have a quick follow-up for you, but let me quickly acknowledge Professor Kwesi Enning. He's a security consultant providing bespoke security services. Prof, good morning. Can you hear me, Professor Enning?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Great, Prof. Give me 40 seconds. I beg of you. Please give me 40 seconds. I don't want to lose my trail of thought with Dr. Doki. Doc,
yeah, sure.
So on the back of what you've said, why I pose that question, in the police service, for example, there has been talk about, Youno had been there for 40 years. someone had not been there, Dr. Dampare and maybe some others had not been there for that long. That was why I was posing that question. So for the sake of ensuring that it is not as though you've promoted someone who is of a lower rank to be a head, you must up the ante for that person in terms of the ranking. That's what you're saying. Okay. Your Zoom is muted. You'll have to unmute for me, Dr. Doki.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah. So using the IGP Yorunu's case, this was a gentleman who was second in command. Now, would you bypass him to pick another person to become the IGP? Right. Or you just follow what? Due process, right? You pick the deputy for him to become the IGP, who has a few months to go, and then now you can make a substantive, appointment again. But to bypass the second man in command to pick another person, then I don't think that's in the right direction.
All right. Before Sweetie Abochi comes back into the fray, Prof, just quick thoughts. What do you make of this shake-up in the leadership of the military? We've had the police, the police has come through, but we've had the prisons, fire service, and we've also had immigration. Now we have the shake-up when it comes to the military proper. What are your initial reactions?
Well, I think the president has made some really excellent choices. The gentleman for the chief of the defense staff, General William Japan, an experienced officer, a gentleman, scholar, firm, disciplined. The chief of the naval staff and I were in Abuja a couple of weeks ago. The Air Force chief is an old friend, likewise the COAS. Now, the fascinating thing about these four men is the personal relationships and interlinking that will bring the collaboration, the fast thinking, and two critical things. First, the need to reset the Ghana Armed Forces. And I'm not using reset in a political sense. I'm using reset in a bureaucratic, administrative sense, making sure that it comes back to its core mandate of protecting this republic. The second is about improving civil-military relations that in the last 3 to 4 years have had certain difficulties. So I think the president and his team have been very careful and cautious in making these choices of experienced officers whose loyalty to Ghana have been tested and proven, and who do what is expected to keep the country safe and to keep us moving. The fascinating thing about elevating a one-star sent several positive signals. If you remember, a couple of years ago, General Blay, as our High Commission, as the DE, the Defense Attaché in Abuja, was also elevated to the CDS. So there's a precedence for this. But what it does, and I want to come back to my usage of the word reset, is that it gives the president now the opportunity to promote bright, relatively young people who are one-stars and colonels and lieutenant colonels, who would otherwise have marked time for a very long period because the top was very heavy with 2 stars. So I think going forward, it's a good day for the Ghana Armed Forces in terms of the individuals who have been chosen to lead the force.
And, Prof, in the context of resetting the Ghana Armed Forces, how do security analysts like yourself assess, or should I say articulate, the impact of, these rapid successions of appointments Are there any concerns that these changes might lead to shifts in defense policies or military engagement? I say that because General Thomas Oppong-Pepa was assumed office on 1st February 2024. Before then, we had Vice Admiral Seta Mwama, who was in office from the 5th of February 2021. Looks like we are seeing a lot of changes in the Ghana Armed Forces. Are there any concerns that this might affect or redefine our defense policies?
No, far from it. I think one of the things that we need to understand, particularly in the statutory security forces, is that the day you are appointed, you also know that the day will come when you have to leave, because above the rank of colonel, every single appointment is a political appointment. And therein lies our earlier suit to the Supreme Court last year to look at it. But be that as it may, for the men and women involved, they don't have a problem because they always know this day will come. But I want to make another point about the concerns that the public have around seemingly rapid turnovers. Look, by the time you hit colonel, your loyalty, professionalism, diplomacy have all been tested either during peacekeeping outside Ghana, internal operations, the moves and the shifts to head different units, so that by the time you hit 1 star and the much heavier appointments come your way, you are very prepared and loyal to the Republic of Ghana and the government in power. You know, so I think the public should be rest assured that General Mwama had no qualms. There were a couple of, misunderstandings here and there prior to General Oppong-Pepa taking over, and now General William Ejapong is coming to take over. What I think the public must expect is an improved civil-military relations. We won't see the Ejura shootings. We won't see the Ashaman brutalities. We will see all kinds of things and elsewhere. I think it is the quality of the leadership, the types of threats that they face, and then the political direction that they are giving as to the extent to which there can be excesses, that we should look forward to seeing a change. But I think the president and his men have made good choices with these 4 men: experienced, savvy, professional, but also willing to listen and to dialogue with the people that they are serving. So I think we can look forward to some good days.
Right.
But the oversight institutions, Parliament, must learn to play its role of engagement and ensuring that the taxpayers' monies and the taxpayers' expectations are held to the highest standards.
I'm glad you mentioned oversight role of Parliament. I know that presidential appointments to the Ghana Armed Forces top echelons have traditionally been in consultation with the Council of State.
Yes.
The statement that was put out, I didn't see anything like that. There was nothing that said in consultation with or approval of. It just says that they will be starting, or their appointment takes effect from the, the 24th of March 2025.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the Council
that.
of State has been consulted? This is...
Yes. Yes. But I want to respond to your concerns about the lack of parliamentary consultation. Parliament will have more than enough opportunities to engage and to crack the whip if and when necessary. There are 3 parliamentary committees that will have close engagement with all these statutory security institutions. One is the Parliamentary Committee on Intelligence, Defense, and Interior. The second is the Finance Committee. The third is the Public Accounts Committee. For the Finance and Public Accounts Committees, we always say they have the power of the purse because they pull the purse strings in terms of the financing, and then, of course, in intelligence, interior, and defense will then have to do more with issues of doctrine and operations and external engagements and all that. So Parliament's role will still be very much felt. But I think what is interesting is that these 4 new men will have an institutional interest in this parliamentary engagement. And I think Mr. Agalga being the head of the Interior and the Defense and Intelligence Committee and the former Interior Minister himself will also have an interest in ensuring that they have critical but harmonious relations.
Let's bring in Dr. Doki. And an interesting bit, because in the last few years, there have been some concerns about promotions within the military, the different arms of the military. And that was part of why I also brought in the bit about a 1-star general versus a 2-star general and all of that. How do you think things are going to shape up under this new leadership? And what maybe should the military be focusing on to ensure that such rancor can become a thing of the past? Dr. Doki.
Well, thank you. So let me build on what my boss was saying, and good morning to you, sir, as already stated. Now, he mentioned it gives the president the opportunity to now promote the young ones. Now, I'll tie to that, which is very true. Now, what some of us have heard is regards to what the promotions, that is a cause of concern. So then you wouldn't have so many who are supposed to be promoted, backlogged. So then what we're going to see now is those who deserve to be promoted will be promoted. Those who deserve to be going to head other institutions, key security institutions within the Ghana forces itself or external would get the opportunity to serve. So then you would have young officers who are vibrant, much more, enlightened, exposed, coming up with new ideas with regards to building the system. Now, when you have
but a quick one, Doc. You say those who ought to be promoted will be promoted. Are you by that suggesting that in the past there were those who ought to be promoted who were not?
Not entirely, because then you have too many 2-stars in the system. How do you then promote the 1-stars, 2-stars? Because there's a backlog. You understand? So then, if now you have young officers coming in, those who are beneath them will get the opportunity to be elevated, because these officers have taken up positions. So there's vacancy from where they left off, and then now you can fill it up, and then they can learn from those who have been promoted to 2-stars, and then whatnot for them to pick up experience with regards to management of the system. That is what I'm trying to say.
Just on the back of that, a quick reflection. Usually when you look at the lineup of those promoted to these chiefs, army chiefs or service chiefs, rarely would you find women in there. And of course, it is also based on getting to certain levels, colonel and beyond, where these promotions can take place. Is there a deficit that you see in that regard? And should our executive leadership in the country start contemplating giving more opportunities to women to also lead?
I agree with you to a very large extent. Now, you would tend to think that with the kind of promotions coming in, you would have, 1 or 2 women in there to send a signal to the women also that with regards to the profession, you are given that opportunity to serve. So I think the executive should take a second look at that. And if you would want to have women taking up number 2s with regards to these positions, and I think it's in the right direction. Then other than that, then they feel left out. But we are encouraging the women now to take up what positions with regards to even enroll in the army and all of that, show what interest in that. So if we are encouraging the women, we want them to take it up, then we have to be what rest assured to be give them what the positions that they need. Well, we have the prison service woman who was taking the top position, but then when you come to the armed forces itself, I think we need to see more of this. There are women in there who have positions, but not at the top level like this. But we are hoping that they will take a second look, and some of us will drive that agenda also to get the objective done.
Prof, so coming to you briefly on this point, we have a new squad, so to speak, new men at the helm. And if you extend it, women as well, if you look at prisons, Patience Bafuboni. What then would be your expectations of this entire team, from immigration to prisons to police to all of the others, including the military, in terms of securing Ghana against the terrorist threat, and also internally in respect of the Boku situation? What would be your thoughts?
I think the team that left, or I know that the team that has just left, did an excellent work to secure this country. That's number one. Number two, this second team will continue to build on what has been built already. What I expect them to do is not to allow our partners to push them because of petty cash to think that the terrorists are at our doorstep.
When you say partners, which ones? Be specific for me, please.
I'm not going to mention specific countries, but I think we all know the ones that hit the drum about the terrorists are coming, the terrorists are coming, the terrorists are coming.
Right.
We need to do our threat assessments ourselves. We need to determine what operational strategies are needed to respond to those threats, and then the equipment and the logistics that we need.
Prof, do we have what it takes to conduct all these threat assessments? Because sometimes it appears outside information is more potent.
I'm just about to climb the hill, so you may lose me very soon. But one of the things that we have started with, or that President Mahama is building on, is the Accra Initiative, where we now have a special envoy, Gbeblo Latte, who is dealing with these three countries, with Togo contemplating joining them. So we are beginning to say, look, what are the threats that we face? What are the interlinkages? How do we, amongst ourselves as members of Accra Initiative, comprising Burkina Faso, Mali, Togo, La Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, Ghana, of course, with Nigeria, as an observer state, how do we understand the types of threats that we are facing? How do we respond? What are the tools that we need? So this new team must do a lot of the hard lifting themselves in terms of the analysis and the triangulation. But I want to come back to one of my earlier points. Building better relations with communities and with the civil population. Because a better statutory security force, civil relations means that intelligence will be shared much faster, trust will be built, and then we will see ourselves as cohering and fighting for a common end. But let me come back to the gender dimensions of these positions. And congratulations to Mrs. Bafuboni. There are a couple of very high-ranking women in the armed forces. 2 stars. I think one that I can very easily recall is Anita Asma. Smart, brilliant, tough as nails, competent. Unfortunately, we lost General Gianni after she had headed the peacekeeping force in the Western Sahara. We have a gender advisor to the CDS. So I think we are getting there. The earlier, the better. But I am very hopeful that we are going to get there because the caliber of highly qualified women, competent, professional, savvy, who are beginning to rise through their ranks. So there are some interesting times ahead. But of course, we are enjoined as ordinary citizens, also to engage, to dialogue, to collaborate, and where necessary, to criticize.
Prof, I understand a point you made about building better relationship with communities. We've been hearing stories or reports of alleged military brutality up north. I'm just wondering how might this new appointment, this new leadership influence the strategic priorities of the Ghana Armed Forces or even impact morale generally and unity when it comes to this relationship we talk about between the Ghana Armed Forces and we, the civilians?
Well, I think this morning I read somewhere that the military commander in Boko has been killed or something. Some fairly senior officer has lost his life.
No.
Now, are we looking at Boko properly? Or we are using old tools to assess an ever-changing conflictual situation in which the old tools do not work? Is it purely a chieftaincy crisis? Or we need to expand it to say what are the other variables that are impinging on and reacting with the original challenge? Organized crime, and what are the goods? It's not the usual guns and bullets, plastics, grains, explosives, fertilizer. Okay, so I am looking forward to the new team coming in, probably on a clean slate, and saying, do we need to look at what is happening differently? Do we need new tools of assessment? And can we draw new conclusions that allows us to determine what strategies to use to resolve this crisis?
Right.
The military themselves will tell you, and this is a word that I truly don't like at all, that kinetic, that is purely military means will not resolve some of these conflicts. So we need alternative non-military strategies to go in there and to say, how do we create other types of incentives so that those who are benefiting from the violence, and I can show you, if we do the disaggregation well, this conflict is a profitable conflict. I've said this several times, but people think I am crazy. So I sit at my desk and I say, okay, let's see whether the old style is going to work. You see, because what types of information were given to the president? The president first traveled out of Accra was to Boko. So for him to go there and for them to promise him and for him to assuage their fears and the conflicts are still going on, then it means we are doing the assessments wrongly. That we are reading the marbles that we've shaken in the basket and cast on the table. We are reading the alignments totally wrongly.
Prof, I want to get Dr. Doke's thoughts on this as well. Doc, how confident are you that this new leadership would influence strategic priorities in terms of I mean, you wrote about bickering, and not for the Ghana Armed Forces, but some other security services. But really, how can this new leadership impact morale and ensure that we are getting better relationship with communities?
Well, first of all, let's look at the aspects of knowing what the priority is. If it is building strong relations with the civilians, then how do we come up with that? Because in the past, we've heard about, as you rightly said, brutalities meted out to civilians and all of that. So if there's need to build capacity in those areas, I think then the new leadership can invest in that area, building capacity, and then also sensitizing the citizens as to know what they need to do with regards to collaborating with the civilians also. One other important thing that I wanted to talk about is collaborating with the sister security agencies, right? This should be, a new norm that would enhance better collaboration and sharing intelligence, which is needed. Unlike in the past, where we've had some level of would I say, bickering with regards to who leads what, with regards to the national space, and then there is some level of show of force. This unit wants to prove that they are more important than the other. I mean, that doesn't help the system itself. So I think they need to focus on how they can collaborate more on the level of intelligence gathering going forward now. Build more capacity with regards to how the military themselves can relate better to civilians. Now, you talk about Boko. How do you ensure that the people will feel safe and trust that the security is there to protect them? And then we have to do away with all these political, appointments that do not help with regards to the service itself. And then those who are here spearheading the mediation and negotiation approaches have to know that the service is there to help them. They need more collaboration in that aspect. Most of the times we see there's a gap in there, and that brings a lot of problems. So all these put together, I think we can do something, and then Boko will be at another pass, hopefully.
And that's it for me, but I just want to get clarity on something I read. You said, quote, I'm quoting you here, the commander-in-chief needs to consult extensively on the way forward to avoid any internal conflict within the Ghana Armed Forces. Failure to do so could be a threat to our security. Are these appointments subject to acceptance within the military hierarchy?
Yes, by and large. Now, Prof mentioned the fact that once you get into the system, you know what you have signed up for. You are being guided by your the moral obligation with regards to the service. So when you get to a certain level, as Prof has explained, you know that it's all going to be political appointments. So with regards to that, what I meant is those who are up for the right positions, those who deserve to be promoted to the right position should be given that opportunity in consultation with all the service chiefs that are involved, the Minister of Defense, Interior Minister, and so that you don't have people who have been left out, and that could bring bickering, and it could disturb the flow of command in the service, and you don't want to have that, because then if you have any hitches with regards to that, the chain of command in the service, then you have some men who are taking.
Thank you so much, Doc. Ben.
Gentlemen, we'll take your final thoughts. I'll start with you, Prof. That is, if we still have you. But there's an interesting thought on my mind when it comes to the executive and its engagement with the Sahelian states. There's even a portfolio to deal with our neighbors in the Sahel who have gone out of ECOWAS. How do you think these service chiefs can also feed into that engagement in terms of bringing some cooperation between our countries? Prof, I'll start with you. 40 seconds each, if you can manage it. Do we have Professor Eni? All right, let me start with Dr. Doki on that point. Dr. Doki, if you can hear me, please unmute.
Hear me?
I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Hello, Benjamin.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, please come with your question. Can you come with your question again? I was having interference then.
So I was saying the executive, the president has shown some, moves to engage our Sahelian brothers and sisters. I'm talking about Burkina Faso and others. And I'm saying with the appointment of these service chiefs, will will you be expecting such interactions as well from the standpoint of the military in terms of cooperation?
Very much so. Now, why so? You're talking about threats that are in your face, and you are best assured that you would engage with your sister agencies across the borders to see how you can strengthen collaborations with regards to operations that would be needed to come to the fore should these threats come to your doorstep. So I would be expecting to see much of these engagements. Okay, with regards to that, the president has appointed Colonel Baglolate in regards to seeing to the Sahelian collaborations and all of that. So together with him and the military leadership, now the service chiefs, there would be some extensive consultations to see how best to strengthen ties, how best to share intelligence, and those institutions that have been mandated to collaborate on the front of fighting terrorism, extremism, would also be roped in together. They would have a comprehensive roadmap with regards to tackling these threats.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doki. Let me bring in Professor Kwesi Ening. Prof, are you able to interact with us now? It appears we don't have Prof. And that's how we're sewing up this conversation. Those who joined us on this belt, we have Dr. Victor Doki, a security analyst, and Professor Kwesi Ening, a security analyst providing bespoke security services. Well, before we take a breather, let me tell you about Solar-Made Ghana. Select a solar system from our various solar packages ranging from 30,000 to 99,000 Ghana cedis. All our solar systems come with lithium-ion batteries. You can get a solar water heater, a solar home system, a solar-powered station, or a solar generator ranging from 1,000 to 20,000 watts. We also sell reverse osmosis machines for water treatment. All you have to do now, Google Solar-Made Ghana to find us on both Facebook and Instagram. Reach us on 0508 320 470. Solar-Made Ghana is located at Adric East Legon. Solar-Made, we go everywhere.
And now I want to tell you about tanks, because let's talk about water tanks, Ghana. Do you know the secret to real water storage? It's simple. If your tank doesn't have the tortoise on it, then it's not the correct tank. That's right. The tortoise tank, the Syntex tank, is a champion of water tanks. It is strong and durable, and it is built to handle our Ghanaian weather. Whether rain or shine, Syntex tank has got your back. So, my people, go outside, check your tank, and if it doesn't have the tortoise on it, it's time to upgrade. Join the Syntex tank family today and enjoy water storage that's tough like a tortoise. Call us 0244 335 168 to buy one, or find one of our over 400 agents nationwide. You can also shop online at syntexgh.com. Syntex tank, a strong, a tough. Taking us on a quick break. When we return, more action on the AM show.